big focus of the hour, the intense pressure that has mounted on the Nepalese army from the protests that have taken place. It has led to a seismic political shift. And Nepalese Prime Minister KP Oli resigned yesterday along with his entire cabinet. In the last 24 hours, Nepal army has taken control. It has appealed to the people and Gen Z protesters to reclaim calm, maintain peace and protect private and government property. They have urged citizens to return any guns, weapons or bullets that were looted or found during the agitation. There were 27 individuals that were involved in looting, arson and other violent acts that have been arrested by the army. Stranded foreign nationals have been urged to make contacts to the nearest security agency or deployed personnel for assistance. Meanwhile, Kathmandu's international airport is set to resume operations a day after being shut down due to the protests. We have witnessed significant protests in Colombo in 2022, in Dhaka in 2024, both that were driven by the youth against government corruption. The protests resulted in their respective prime ministers resigning and fleeing shortly after. In this case too, the Nepalese Prime Minister KP Oli tendered his resignation within 36 hours of the protests. The question is, what will happen next in Nepal and how impactful is this regime going to be vis-a-vis Nepal and India relations? Let's start our conversation. I have with me Ambassador S.D. Muni. Ambassador Muni, let's understand from you about this unrest that seems to be quite frequently witnessed in the Indian subcontinent. In fact, the CJI of the country, CJI Gawai, also made a statement just a few hours ago. He said, amidst the turmoil and uncertainty and ambiguity of the governments installed in the countries in the subcontinent, India arises as an exception, a shining example of a vibrant democracy. Why do you think these protests are festering the very essence and the political structure of countries, first in Sri Lanka, we saw in Bangladesh, we've seen this now in Nepal?
Well, I think there are two factors which you should keep it in mind. We should all keep it in mind. One is the domestic context of all these countries. And the second one is the external one. The domestic context is that the governments have not been able to respond to the aspirations and expectations of people in general. This is what it is everywhere else, and the violations or what you call shortcomings on the part of the government are on various fronts: economic front, economic opportunities, employment for the youth, education system, and to some extent even curbing the freedom of expression, which has happened in Bangladesh, which happened in Sri Lanka, the way Rajapaksa regime was behaving. Well, there are similar kind of complaints in case of Nepal, and of course Pakistan, we all know about it. So you have this pattern of internal economic lack of performance, not proper governance as it is, and on the above all that, restraining freedom of expression and all that. These are all domestic reasons, and therefore the roots of all these uprisings actually lie in the domestic system, which we should not forget. But at the same time, what has happened is that the subcontinent is caught in two sort of rivalries or competitions in the geopolitical context. One is between China and the US. The other is also, whether you like it or not, between India and China. And most of India's neighbors are all caught between these two competitions, these two rivalries. And as a result of it, it is amazing that in Bangladesh, in Sri Lanka, and now in Nepal, the governments which have been thrown out were known as being pro-China, all the three cases. And in Bangladesh and Sri Lanka, there were quite reliable evidence of involvement of US stakes and US interests. In Sri Lanka, in fact, the American ambassador was quite active. She was seen at the time of revolt when Rajapakshas were thrown out, and then she even visited the JVP office and all that. In Bangladesh, again, there were several reports which indicated that the US was not happy with Hasina. She had denied strategic access to them on some of the cases, and that was one of the trigger which really took place. Now, in Nepal also, Oli's government was known as being pro-China, and therefore there is a certain pattern. I am not giving you an evidence. I'm just telling you, drawing the map as it has happened in South Asia. Now, Pakistan is an exception because everybody knows that Pakistan is quite close to China. And I think that is the reason the US doesn't want to drop Pakistan away, no matter what the conditions are. Forget about the issue of terrorism, forget about the issue of economic crisis in Pakistan, forget about the lack of democracy, the way Imran Khan has been treated there. All that is ignored, and somehow Pakistan is being tolerated for its very strategic location, and also despite the fact that it has very cozy relationship with China. So I think these
Yeah.
are the two aspects. So one can go into details, but let me stop here to begin with. We'll come back again if need to.
Okay, all right. Professor Madhav Nalapat is also on the telecast with me. Professor Nalapat, taking forward this conversation to the points that have been mentioned by Ambassador Muni, how do you think India is going to be able to keep its steady relations with all these countries, and of course the latest setback that Nepal has witnessed? Does this impact India's association, India's historic ties and diplomatic relations with Nepal in any sense, keeping in mind now the army has taken control? We do not know. Nobody knows. I have spoken to residents in Nepal and they are clueless. They do not know. They're living under fear. They don't know what's going to happen. They can't make out the difference from one day to another.
Well, Megha, you put it very nicely, and I completely agree with Professor Muni about the domestic issues being utilized by external powers for their proxy war. And unfortunately, that there is certainly tension between India and China, and the Chinese have been looked for quite some time working to destabilize the countries bordering India, whether they are bordering it in by land or by sea. But the reality of the situation is, Megha, that all these countries depend heavily on India for their economic support, on Indian tourism, on Indian business, Indian investment, and even Indian human resources coming and staying there. That's why, for example, President Muizu had to have an about turn and started becoming friendly with India. So I'd like to point out that in the case of Nepal, the relationship of India with its own prosperity is very high. And I think the problem was that the government there basically took a lot of money out of the Nepalese economy, and the exodus of young Nepalese to other countries rose exponentially during the Oli government. So finally, the youth had had enough, and they revolted. We have to
Yeah.
understand that Gen Z is got a lot of fissile material in it, and we have to work in a way that basically meets these aspirations. And the case of India, it should not be difficult given this very high importance the Indian economic and political and social linkages have with the friendly Nepalese people, who overall are a very friendly and very admirable people, highly courageous in combat, very hardworking when given an opportunity. The problem was Oli did not give any opportunity to them, and Oli thought that stifling control of the media, Oli thought that a very authoritarian form of functioning would ensure that he not step down. He forgot about the reality of Gen Z, and I think Gen Z has issued a very rude reminder to Oli, and I will hope that the new government will to heed the lesson and ensure that public concerns are met
Okay.
properly and adequately.
I do
Thank you.
want to reflect this news, and would this help us put things in perspective? Because as per Nepalese media, former Chief Justice Sushila Karki is likely to become the interim Prime Minister. Her name has been proposed by the Gen Z protesters themselves. This is an interesting development. Just to give a backgrounder on who Sushila Karki is, she is the former Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of Nepal. There was an impeachment motion that had been submitted in the Parliament back in 2017. This was an impeachment motion that was backed by not just the Congress but also the Maoists. After that, there was massive public pressure that was mounted. There was outrage, after which that impeachment motion was withdrawn and she was reinstated as the Supreme Court Chief Justice of Nepal. So let's understand this further. Major General Shashi Asthana, I just gave you the background. It is not another political party that is going to replace the Congress. It is not going to be the Maoists. There was speculation that the monarchy may come back. That's not likely to happen, but a new name, the former Supreme Court Chief Justice, is the one that has reportedly gotten the backing of the Gen Z protesters, the youth of the country, and to look back, she was the target of political parties across all party lines in Nepal.
In addition to what has been said, I must say that the anger was against all politicians. So it was not only the ruling party, but it was also all the politicians, whether it was opposition or it was a coalition party or it was Prachanda's party and everybody. And everybody has been roughed up as far as the politicians are concerned. So therefore, the anger was against nepotism, elitism, the corruption, joblessness, and other things have already been brought out, which as far as the domestic affairs are concerned. Now what is being looked at is, army of course had no choice but to step in, otherwise things were getting out of hand. Even yesterday I had some discussions with some of their retired generals, and apparently a consensus was there, and we were expecting that the announcement to come, and that came, and I think things seem to be coming reasonably under control. Now, apparently, perhaps the indicators are that you need a non-political person. Now, the name which you have suggested, it sets into the entire scheme that she is a non-political person. She does not have any linkages with corruption, and the Gen Z is disgusted with the political elites for whatever reasons which have come out already in media and have been covered by media channels as well. Now there are also some other names, like people were talking about Balinder Shah, who seems to be having a fair amount of social media influence, as well as a little bit of, shall I say, attraction in a manner that he was supporting this movement, and subsequently he seemed to be indicating that he wanted the arson and looting and all other vandalism to stop. So he also seemed to be one of the candidates apparently, but we will have to wait and see as to who comes up. But certainly what army has said is, army is certainly not taking over, nor is it a case of a martial law implementation, nor is there a provision in their constitution of this kind. But army is certainly given an option that all the protesters, they need to talk and come out with an option. So what you are saying, I would say that could be one of the choices, and appropriately, because she is the only one apparently who against whom Gen Z is not disgruntled, or who do not have an anger.
Whose house has not been burned down, or who has not been dragged out on the streets and beaten up. All right, I am also being joined by Kamlesh Dwivedi. He is an advocate in the Supreme Court of Nepal. Kamlesh, if you can hear me. And what do you make of this latest information? As per reports, the former Chief Justice of Nepal is the likely Prime Minister of the country, supported by the Gen Z protesters, supported by the youth of the country. Okay, we'll try to come back to Kamlesh. I am going to get Sumit Peer in the meantime. Sumit, situation at this point of time, unhappiness, anger, frustration among the youth. They are not trusting of the monarchy that was displaced back in 2008. They are equally distrustful of the political parties, whether it is the communists, the Maoists, or for that matter the Congress. Do you think there is a new wave of transformation in the way the political system works? And if a Supreme Court Chief Justice is being put on a pedestal and the youth are asking her, urging her to lead the nation, what does this indicate?
Megha ji, thank you for having me on your show. Well, on the face of it, it might look all hunky, good and hunky dory. But if you look at Bangladesh, what is the outcome? We have Hizbul Tahrir, we have Jamaat, we have all these nefarious Islamist organizations who are literally controlling Bangladesh. We have the atrocities against Hindus, which have reached all-time high. We have literal anarchy there. ISI has opened a office lock, stock and barrel there. We have Middle Eastern terror fermenting out of there, and we have even ISIS-K present in Bangladesh today. So it might look that it is all good, but at the end of the day, even if you look at the credentials of what is his name, Muhammad Yunus, he also looks to be a Nobel laureate, and these students shouldn't be controlling the things. But the question is it so natural? Is it that somebody could dislodge a government and in next 48 hours could just implant somebody? Is there some people who are behind it? Is there some people who are unhappy? When KP Sharma Oli banned the apps, why 98% of them were American or Western apps? Why didn't he touch the Chinese apps? Why did he have 35 MOUs with Xi Jinping in SEO? What was outsourcing everybody to China? Why was he selling piece by piece, brick by brick of Nepal's sovereignty to China? What was China doing for their last 17 years? What was that nefarious Chinese woman ambassador who was going in those private taxis? And what are those allegations about her? And why did China pull her back after there were a lot of allegations about her and even some videos and all were talked about? Now the question is that it is a classic where China is kind of got it. Maybe they didn't get it right. CIA is intervening here. And look at that Nepalese NGO, which got money from a Pakistani company, which is owned by Alibaba in China. What is the link between that? So if you start adding up all the things together, Gen Z was angry, they were anguished, that's okay. But how did it turn into a regime change protest? Why did they burn the Supreme Court? Why did they burn the parliament? And why did they attack the Pashupatinath temple? What were the reasons for that? Why burning of Supreme Court? How does it help any mission? Look, it is good on the face of it, but if that is the model which is being propagated, look, we had a lot of problems in Bihar at the time of Agniveer. And there are a lot of people still in Bihar who have full capacity of inciting students. We have to be very careful that if this model works, because after Bangladesh, it was tried in Indonesia. After Indonesia, it didn't work in Indonesia, it worked in Nepal. They might try it in India next, because there is a way you can't, defeat Modi politically, but you can always remove Modi, with such a turmoil. So these are some issues which are cropping up. We need to tread carefully and watch out how the things turn out. We have to make sure that people like Hizbul Tahrir and Hifazat Islam and such nefarious organizations or Chinese or ISI-based stooges don't come to power, which will be more problem for India to handle, in my opinion.
Kamlesh Dwivedi, if you can hear me, I would like to get you into the conversation. Kamlesh is an advocate in the Supreme Court of Nepal. Kamlesh, have the people of Nepal exhausted all options that they have now propped up the former Chief Justice of India to be their leader?
Yeah, it's true. And she is a very honest personality known in Nepal. So our new generation trust on her to form new civil our society government in Nepal.
What are the basic problems that the people of Nepal, the masses of Nepal are facing? We understand there has been massive disgruntlement against dispensations, whether it is the Maoists or the Congress. They are unhappy and anger has been simmering for the last so many years over the elites who have all the privileges. There is this massive unhappiness where the children of these elites, of these political leaders, of these businessmen and entrepreneurs are given opportunities on a platter, while the youth continues to suffer because there are lack of jobs, because there is unemployment, because inflation is high, the country's economy is not performing as it should?
Actually, in Nepal, this is a public frustration. Not, it is not indicated by China or India. It is a totally public frustration, and the civil people of Nepal want change. They are fed up from the corruption, from the government and our civil servant and other sector. So these all things come the result of frustration, and people are.
Okay, we have lost that connection with Kamlesh. We'll try to fix that. But coming back to you, Ambassador Muni, I do want a reaction from you about this latest development.
Well, the latest development
Yeah,
is
I'll come
Yeah.
back to you, Kamlesh. I'll come back to you.
Yeah.
Ambassador Muni, yes.
the latest development will first depend upon peace and order in Kathmandu and in Nepal. It is true that discussions have started about an interim arrangement, and I think Sushila Karki is a very able, competent person. It is interesting to note that for the past 2 days, the names which were circulating were not of Sushila Karki. The names which were circulating were of the Balendra Shah on the one hand, even Ravi Lamechan on the other hand, and Mr. Gurum, who was the Hami Nepal leader who really created this kind of a network of youth on social media. So these were the names, but all these names, Ravi Lamechan already has on his head the corruption charges. He was in prison. They have broken the prison and taken him out. And while taking him out, they let another 1,000 criminals go out on the streets. Secondly, so far as Gurung is concerned, he is still very young and not affiliated to the party, which is good enough. But they may be in the interim arrangement. I am not ruling out. I am talking of the person who is headed. So they had to have somebody who is mature, who is senior. And don't forget that in Nepal, there is a tradition of going to, earlier it was Khilraj Regni. When Baburam Bhattrai's government came to an end, the interim arrangement was under the Chief Justice who was there. So there is a tradition that judges who are honest and have taken a forthright position, not being the loonies of the government, really are respected by people. And that's why Sushila Karki is respected by the people. But if you permit me, I want to come to this China factor.
Yes.
We in India are, of course, quite occupied with China. But let me say something which may be politically incorrect, but factually correct. And that's what I want to say. I mean, in whole of South Asia, the largest economic engagement with China is that of India. China has a lot of money to offer to all the South Asian countries. They are all looking for money. They are all looking for developmental projects. China delivers their projects on time and with great efficiency. And the China of Xi particularly is different from the China before Xi, or I would say even before the beginning of this century. Earlier, China came to the rescue of these India's neighbors when they called China that, look, we have a pressure or we have alienation from India, so come and have a counterbalance. So China took a token position, okay, we stand by our sovereignty independence. But with the beginning of this century, the Chinese economy have expanded and they look at South Asia as one of the most promising subcontinent or the region. Why I say that? 1.7 billion people, 1.6 billion people, take the exact figure, that's not important here, growing at the rate, on an average rate of 5.5%. There is no other region in the whole world which is showing this kind of a potential. Therefore, who in the world is not interested in South Asia? America is interested, Europe
Right.
is interested, West Asia is interested. Why should China be not interested?
Okay.
Therefore, even if the neighboring countries don't want China to be there, India doesn't want China to be in the neighborhood, the Chinese would come. The challenge is
and
the
also
Chinese.
keeping in mind their ideology, their philosophy, Mao Zedong talking about the five-finger policy. Nepal is one of those five fingers. So there are these aggressive expansionist policies that China continues to harbor thus far, Ambassador.
Historically, let me mention it to you, the five finger is 1930. During Mao's time, there is no way China can pursue five finger policy. There is absolutely no way. The Chinese are, just 1 minute, the Chinese are mortally scared of still unstable Tibet. And it is Tibet and Xinjiang, the most turbulent regions of Chinese periphery, are neighboring South Asian countries. From Afghanistan to Pakistan to India to Nepal to Bhutan. Therefore, Chinese have to concentrate on South Asia. And they will pose challenge to us, they will pose challenge to all the neighbors. You look at it objectively, not in terms of attributing motives.
Okay, all right. Quickly, a comment from you, Kamlesh Dwivedi. Understanding from you what the sentiment on the ground right now is. There has been this calm, a sensitive calm that has persisted since today morning. Even the youth at this point of time have sort of calmed down, because at this point their only aim was to remove KP Oli from the position of the Prime Ministership, and that they have been able to successfully do. And again, there is huge police deployment, army deployment on the ground, whether it is in Kathmandu or the neighboring areas, even the international airport. But how are things going to pan out in the coming hours and days?
Yeah, nowadays Kathmandu is calming down slowly, and now we are waiting for the new interim government in the head of our former Chief Justice Sushila Karki, who was known as a non-political and quite honest in Nepal. And we have no more choice to whom we make our interim Prime Minister. So Sushila Karki is better one between us. And people here eagering for a new change, to make a new Nepal, who has a bilateral relation equal with India and China. And we want our business and our all thing equally between two countries. Our youth want to do their job in their country. Even in Kathmandu airport, you see a lot of youth are deploying from here. It is not good for the country economic situation. So we are looking forward, and this revolution, I want to continue in 30 seconds. This is not a protest, it is a revolution from our new generation, which has come to the better end by to making a new Nepal with development, prosperity with our both neighboring country equally.
All right, thank you, Kamlesh, and thank you all my other panelists for joining me on the telecast and sharing their views. On that note, I slip into a short break. Thanks for watching NewsX.